I'm Hilary Hendershott, your host. Welcome to Profit Boss Radio, episode 80. Profit Boss Radio is your weekly wealth mastermind. Profit Boss is also a community and a movement for women who are ready to take control of their money, break the glass ceiling, and give ourselves permission to finally have enough. Want the secrets of wealth to be yours? This is the place. I'm Hilary Hendershott. I'm a certified financial planner running a leading advisory firm for women, and I'm sharing with you real stories from real life and real women who are making it happen. Forget Wall Street. Let's do this, ladies. Well, a warm hello to the Profit Boss audience. I am thrilled to be recording a unique episode of Profit Boss Radio. I don't know how often I'll get to do something like this because I have here with me in this room Rachel of Rachel's Deals and Steals, and she's also on my team, but she lives and works from Gilbert, Arizona. I'm in San Jose, California, and she happens to be visiting. So we're sitting in the same room recording on the same microphone.
It's really, really exciting. I'm so happy to be here. Hilary has been a great hostess, and we've had a wonderful time.
Well, San Jose is quite a place to host people, except many of you have heard of the wildfires that are taking place in the Napa and Sonoma counties. That's wine country, California. That's just over an hour and a half drive from here. It's probably a lot fewer miles as the crow flies, but just today we've noticed some smoky, dark cloud cover. So there's smoke in the air, even in San Jose. And it's tragic what's happening in Napa. And our heart goes out to you if you're out there. I hope no Profit Boss audience members have lost a home. I read 2,000 structures have burned and I think 17 people have died. So it's terrible. And we're sending our best thoughts to you. And of course, to the wineries and the employees of the wineries. I was just in Napa 10 days ago for my birthday. And so it's heartbreaking what's happening. And again, we're sending safe and healing thoughts to all of you. Also this week in the news, Richard Thaler, professor of behavioral economics at University of Chicago's Booth School of Business, won the Nobel Prize in economics. If you're interested in his work, you may have read the book Nudge or be familiar with the concept of nudging people to do what you want them to do. Like I try to nudge Rachel when I tell her what I want, but
she tried to nudge me because she said I was going to break her desk today because it's been reassembled to accommodate this microphone.
If you're interested in more of Professor Thaler's work, check out the Profit Boss Weekly. You can subscribe at hilaryhendershott.com right there on the homepage. I wrote a full article including links to some entertaining and educational pieces about his work in behavioral economics, why investors make mostly irrational, sometimes rational, but mostly irrational decisions. Rachel, what do we have on slate today?
Well, enough about all the other news. The best news of all is we're going to answer some of your questions from the Facebook group and a couple questions that were emailed in. So I'm just going to get started. And thank you, Carissa, for this great question. She says, how can I assume others have this same question as well, change our mindset when it comes to shopping and spending money in general? My husband is an underspender and I am an overspender. Me too, girl. Because I like to be proactive and be prepared. He always feels I spend way too much, but he's someone who never shops and still had the same clothes from high school at age 35. We are so opposite in this area. How can we find that middle ground as a couple?
Yeah, that sounds tough. What I hear is that you're both making decisions based on feelings, and those feelings come from strongly held beliefs about money that come from your past. So he feels you spend too much and you feel that you want to be proactive and prepared. I'm not exactly sure what that means, if you're building a bunker or if that just means you buy 24 rolls of toilet paper instead of 12. I understand, but again, I'm not totally sure that it sounds to me like this idea of being proactive and prepared also comes from your money operating system. It does seem like you have kind of an extreme environment with him, though. If he's 35 years old and wearing the same clothes from high school, It sounds like he has a money operating system about doing without or working hard for money, something like that. I know people like this who actually, they seem to get pleasure from like not turning on the heater during a cold winter or just generally declining to spend money on themselves. So I think that this marriage may be helped by taking on evolving both of your money operating systems. If you find a way to engage in a money conversation together over time, you will find that you change your thinking and that you evolve. You grow and mature, just like you have on other topics as you've been educated on them. So maybe try planning money dates, try reading money books together. But most importantly, you need a plan so that you don't have to spend based on your feelings. You need to decide how much money you're going to save every month, and then you spend what's left. And then there's really no feelings involved unless you're not fulfilling on your spending plan or overspending it. That can generate some bad feelings, especially probably on your husband's part if he's the one who wants to save more. But that plan is really going to be the cure to arguments about money, I think. So I wish you the best of luck.
Thanks, Carissa. Now we've got a question from Dana. She emailed this in the other day. This may be more of a tax question, but here it goes. I have an employee-sponsored 401k, a Roth IRA, and a traditional IRA. I typically max out my 401k every year. I am 100% commission employee, so my income fluctuates. I will make about half of what I did last year since I had my second baby and have been working less. Is it more advantageous from a tax strategy to contribute to my 401k versus Roth IRA? I will still contribute to either Roth or traditional at year end too when I know what our gross income will be so as not to have to recharacterize it. I could max out my 401k and dip into savings if this will reduce our tax burden more than contributing to our other retirement accounts. Hopefully that question makes sense.
It sure does. And wow, this person, Dana, you're a very responsible saver. So congratulations. You're asking great questions. And listen, the only reason that the 401k is more advantageous than the Roth and the regular IRA is because you can contribute so much more to it. And I think you have a sense of that. So putting $18,000 into the 401k means probably taking about $6,000 out of Uncle Sam's hands and putting it back into your own bank account. That really depends on your state's income tax rate. But in California, that's what most investors are looking at. Then you get to earn returns, not only on the whole $18,000, but that free $6,000 chunk. And then $6,000 turns into $12,000, turns into $24,000, turns into $48,000. And that's really how compound returns work. And I think, Dana, that you do have a good sense of that. But the core answer to your question is, I would first focus on maxing out my 401k. And if you're at 50% of historical compensation and you can still max out your 401k, kudos to you. And then if you can still contribute to a Roth or an IRA at the end of the year, that's fine. But no, it doesn't make sense to dip into savings to max out 401k contributions. It's sort of like robbing Peter to pay Paul. So just max out the 401k first and or traditional IRA, and you should be fine.
Great. Thanks, Hilary. All right, so we have another question from the Facebook group from Joanna. She wants to know, is there a best time to adjust your deductible on your W-2s? Is it whenever you get a raise, as I heard throughout my earning years, or when you retire and settle into a fixed income, or both?
Okay, so Joanna's asking about controlling how much money your employer withholds for you on your taxes. There's this game that people play because over the course of the year, if you're on payroll, your employer will withhold taxes for you because most people won't save and withhold them for themselves so that then you can pay Uncle Sam at the end of the year. And it's kind of a crapshoot whether your employer withholds the right dollar amount. And then people get really excited on April 15th if they get money back. But it's silly because all that means is that you've given Uncle Sam an interest-free loan over the course of the year. So Joanna, adjusting your deductible on you said W-2, but I think it's W-4. I believe you submit the W-4 to your employer and that you get the W-2 at the end of the year. So adjusting your, not deductible, but a number of exemptions on your W-4 works to control that dollar amount that your employer withholds. And what you're doing is reporting to your employer that you've got a certain number of exemptions, like people that you take care of, maybe disabilities, things like this, that lower your taxes. And exemptions turn into lower taxes. So more exemptions means lower withholdings, and that means a bigger paycheck. So the answer to this question really depends on whether or not you're an overspender. So there's like plan A and plan B. I think in a perfect world, you would max out your exemptions, maybe put 10 or 15 exemptions and take all the money out of your paycheck that you can, and then put that money in a savings account so you can earn even a little bit of interest on it over time. Now, we used to give this piece of advice, but now interest rates are so low that what can you earn in a savings account? Almost nothing. That's really interesting. So I don't know about this. I think if you're so inclined to have a tax savings account and you want to withhold on your own behalf instead of your employer, I think long term, that's the better strategy. But then plan B is just like let your employer do it for you. Like I said, in this interest rate environment, it used to be that CDs would pay 4 or 5, sometimes even 6%, but you can't get that now. So in this interest rate environment, it really makes almost no difference. So I don't think I would consider that particular game or strategy to be valuable to my long-term financial health.
Good answer. I didn't know that. All right. We've got our last question for this segment from Valeria. She's also from the Facebook group. She wants to know, is there a right answer or series of factors to the conundrum of investing or paying off the mortgage?
Yeah, so this is a very good question, and it's a common question. I will answer it concisely. Basically, as long as you've refinanced or purchased your home in the last 7 or so years, you've got an interest rate that's somewhere between 2 and 4%, which means the expected returns from a stock portfolio are something like 8 or 9%, as long as you've got a globally diversified index-based stock portfolio. And this is not an investment recommendation to you. It's simply a conceptual conversation about what's possible. If you borrow the bank's money at 3% and invest that money at 8%, you've got what's called arbitrage, or a net profit of 5%. Now, the stock market goes up and the stock market goes down, so that profit or arbitrage isn't going to occur every year. And if you keep the mortgage but spend the money, then you've nullified any benefit. So if in my first choice plan would be to keep the mortgage and invest that money in the stock market in the kind of portfolio I described earlier, my second choice plan would be to pay off the mortgage, and third choice would be to keep the mortgage and spend the money. There you go. I hope that helps.
Perfect. Another great episode of Ask Hilary.
What I've got for you next is a couple of interviews from actual members of the Profit Boss audience. So this is a key part of season 2 of Profit Boss. So I've been looking at really asking Profit Boss members, what have you gotten from the podcast? What lessons have you learned? What benefits do you have in your life? What advances have you made in your journey to financial freedom? So today we have Gardenia and we have Alexis, who have generously shared their own stories of what they took from the podcast and the Facebook group and how they implemented it in their own lives. First up, we have Gardenia, who really had an aha moment about what she didn't want in her financial life as a function of seeing someone else's suffering, and then decided to make changes. First, we'll hear from Gardenia and then from Alexis. Please enjoy these interviews on Profit Boss Radio. Did you know that people with a written financial plan are 60% more likely to increase their savings over time and twice as likely to stick to their savings plan than those who don't accomplish the simple step of just writing it down? Yet just 24% of Americans say they have a wealth plan in writing. I want us to change those statistics, and I've got an offer for you that's going to make it as easy as 1, 2, 3 for you to get your wealth plan in order. The first step to having a wealth plan is taking stock of what's already there. You have to know your net worth. You have to know where you're starting from in order to get to your destination. And knowing what your financial life looks like at a glance is the key. You can use a financial dashboard to manage your wealth plan, and I am giving you free access to the same financial dashboard I use with my most successful clients. A financial dashboard allows you to track your bank accounts, categorize your spending, track real estate and mortgages, including even knowing the difference between principal and interest, and your investments and your credit cards, and see it all at one place and at your fingertips. I think we can all agree that having one location, both on the web and on your mobile device, to view your entire financial picture saves you time and frustration. It also empowers you to take control. This is an exclusive offer for the Profit Boss audience. To take advantage, just go to hilaryhendershott.com/emoney. This is the same technology I make available to my comprehensive financial planning clients. It has superior security with 256-bit secure socket layer encryption. They literally have a team of security experts trying to hack the system at all times, but no one has ever succeeded, and it's a VeriSign secure site. The portal itself is totally non-transactional, so no one can move, withdraw, or access your money. It just puts all the same data that's already online in one place so you can see it. You input your various passwords, and those are kept private and only ever accessible to you, sort of like mint.com, but with a lot more planning power. Full disclosure, I am the advisor behind the scenes. My team and I could potentially run across your account balances. But listen, those are visible to the folks at mint.com or Personal Capital or any other financial dashboard app you might be using. And I'm here because I truly want you to be successful, and I'm not going to do wrong by you. You can trust me and my team to safeguard your information. Having a wealth plan in place is one of the 7 key steps to wealth, and the eMoney Financial Dashboard is a powerful tool that makes that possible. Once you're logged in, interactive workshop tools can help you see how changes in savings and investments today affect your future retirement goals, and that really puts you in the driver's seat. I'm proud to offer you this tool, and I hope you take advantage of it now. To request access, please go to hilaryhendershott.com/emoney. Gardenia, welcome to Profit Boss Radio.
Hi, thank you.
I am so excited to hear your success story. And I know you shared with me in our pre-interview communications that you've really changed a lot about your financial life. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what life was like leading up to your financial turnaround or transformation moment? How were things going in your money life?
Well, money was always tight. I always had problems, managing it. I'd have a certain amount of money come in, and then, I'd think it'd last, and all of a sudden I'd look at my accounts, and they were just always out of balance. I didn't, understand what was going on. I thought I was, saving, and I wasn't. So yeah, it was a mess.
Really? You thought you were saving, but you weren't. Tell me more about that.
The reality is that I wasn't saving enough. So I was, saving a couple $100 or here and there, and then something would happen and I wouldn't have enough to cover that emergency, like a car payment or my own health.
Oh, yeah. Car payments I don't typically relate to them like they're an emergency. So if they were an emergency in your life, I could get it. It's just like not enough money coming in to match what was going out, huh?
Yes, that's for sure.
Give us a sense of, were you renting an apartment, or how were you living? And, were you living a lavish lifestyle, or where was all the money going?
Yeah, no, I was renting an in-law unit that was, about 600 square feet. And I have car payments and I have health insurance, which is usually the big one. And I had to have surgery, so I had to spend more money there. And it's just not enough. I was working a lot, 7 days a week, and I couldn't get out of the hole,
Oh my goodness, 7 days a week.
7 days a week, about 60 something hours a week. So yeah, it was tough.
Now I'm really curious. I mean, how are you working 60, 70 hours a week? Were you just not charging enough, or that's a lot of hours?
Yeah, it's a lot of work. It was a new business, so I had just launched, and I had to, market myself and all that stuff. And it took a while for me to figure out pricing and, what was working, what was not. And it took a couple of part-time jobs on. So I had about 3 jobs.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. So you definitely have a hard work ethic. Now tell me, how was money when you were growing up? What was it like in your family? What are some of the money beliefs or experiences that you had from your childhood?
I'm the youngest of 10, so I have a huge family, and my dad's always been the breadwinner. Mom always stayed home to take care of the kids, and it was always just you have enough, you have food, you have clothing, and that's it. You don't really get much. And Dad was big on savings, always, which I felt, like I was always disappointing him because I wasn't doing what he always told me to do. And he always said, don't do credit cards, don't do credit, everything, cash is king, and I was like, oh, credit cards are so exciting. But so, yeah, it was for me, I guess the idea that I grew up with was there's never enough and you have to work hard for your money.
Got it. And so did they send you to college? Did you go to college?
I had took some classes and then I dropped out and took a break for like 10 years and went back to do culinary school. So I do have a certification in culinary.
Okay. And so have you done that for work?
Yeah, I did that for about a year and I loved it. It was probably one of the best things I've ever done. And I got a severe work-related injury that took me out.
Oh, bummer. Oh,
Yep.
that's brutal. And so do you have school debt from that?
Yeah, I did actually last year. I was able to pay it off last year. So that's another one of the good things I got from listening to you and Profit Boss Radio.
Oh, well, funny you should bring that up. Okay, so tell me about, because I say, and maybe you don't remember it this way or, but I think for everyone who decides to alter the direction of their financial life, that there is a moment where they make a decision, because it's almost inevitable that right after that decision, you really have to tighten the belt. And you can earn a lot more in the future, but in the short term, there are sacrifices to be made. When you decide to get your financial life in order, at the very least, it costs you time to sit down and go through the accounts and receipts and the costs and like that. So do you remember a specific moment that you said to yourself, okay, I'm going to do things differently?
Yeah, actually, I listened to one of your episodes and you answered one of my questions. And it was about, retirement and funding and, what do you do with extra money, because I finally started to do good in my business and I felt, confident. So I wanted to start saving enough and really investing because I really believe, investing is probably the best way to get to retirement. So I was walking my dog and I was really listening to your podcast, and I listened to it at least 3 times just to really get a sense of what you were saying. So there I was, walking down the street. It was about 4 p.m. Sun was awesome, beautiful weather. And I turned the corner and there's, this older woman standing there, So of course I stop and chat with her and she's talking to me about what she did for the day, and she was like, oh yeah, I got to get up and have my cup of tea and, do some gardening and and I said, yeah, that's pretty great. I said, how long have you been retired? And she said, oh, I'm not retired, I'm still working. And it really hit me like, oh wow, like it's great when you want to work to keep yourself healthy, but when you're working because you have no choice at 70 or 80, it really hit me. So I was like, this is the time, this is to do something different. So I went back home and I logged into mint.com and I just started using it and really figuring out, okay, so where's my budget and where am I overspending and what am I doing wrong? And I really know, like I saw a bunch of things that I didn't need, and these like subscriptions, those are the ones that get me because it's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna take care of it next month, and I forget and then later I'm just wasting money on like Netflix that I never even watch. So so little things like that I started to cut back on and really like set a budget and stick with it. And it made, a world of a difference.
Yeah, I like what you said about the woman on the street corner who I assume it was her age. Like she looked to you like she should be retired, so you assumed she was. Is that it?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, and I call it a moment of truth. You saw yourself in her. It's like, oh, I actually don't want that life. I'm actually at an age where I can plan and strategize and avoid that situation where I'm working because I can't stop working. All right. So what are some of the lifestyle changes that you made? You canceled subscriptions. I'm surprised you canceled Netflix because I can't get through a day without Netflix, but I got you do something else for entertainment. I got that.
Well, honestly, I didn't even have time to watch it. So it was just
Oh.
kind of rolling over. I had like, a list or whatever of your favorites or the ones you want to watch, and I never got to it. So I was like, oh, forget it. I'll come back to it maybe when I'm retired. I went to a coach actually when I was taking some classes for college, and I just went to a coach and I said, hey, what do you offer? And this awesome service for college students, and it's just she sat with me once a week, and then we talked about what I could do differently, and she had me write down every single expense, and she said, oh, this is old school, but the reality was that when I saw it in print, I was like, wow, I really do spend a lot of money on that, or wow, that's not where my money should go, so I did that for a couple of months, and then I got in a routine and I started to really cut back. So every time that I would swipe my card, I would think about it before and say, oh, I got to show this to my coach, like this is I'm going to have to talk to her about why I decided to spend that amount of money on that.
That's accountability right there.
It sure is. And it worked for me.
Okay, and so you're working with this coach, and for example, so you paid attention to spending based on categories, or did you do, because my favorite way is just to give myself an allowance in an account that I call Today's Fun and let myself spend on whatever I want. But how did you sort of attack the problem of overspending?
I did the envelope system.
Okay.
And just put, a certain amount of money in the envelope. And then if it ran out, I'd have to take it from another envelope.
Did you
and
literally use paper envelopes?
Yeah, I did. I didn't put the money in the envelope. I did little sticky notes on the envelope. And then that's where I just went with it. I couldn't put money in envelopes. That's weird. But, yeah, it worked. I was like, wow, this is cool. I really started to see where I had extra money, and instead of lowering the budget, I would just, take whatever was extra and throw it into, a savings account, and I started to see my checks, and every check that came in, I would take 15% for savings and 15% for taxes. And I'd put them into different accounts and online accounts so that I wouldn't have access to it that easily.
Okay.
And they worked to just see and focus like, okay, this is cool. This is working.
How long did it take before you started to notice a real difference?
I want to say about 3 months.
And how would you describe the difference of how it feels? How you feel about yourself, how you feel about money, how you feel when you're interacting with people. Like, for example, I used to be, when I was broke, I never wanted to go out to a restaurant or a bar with my friends because the anxiety for me was so high that I was going to get into a situation where there was a shared expense. People always split the bill, and I was like, I just had water.
So I feel relieved, I feel like everything's under control. I don't have to be scared every time I log into my bank account. I know what to expect. And that's
Isn't that
a
the
nice
coolest?
Yes, it's good.
I always say I went from every time I would log into my bank accounts, there would be less money than I thought there was going to be. Like, I was hoping there would be $1,000 and there was like only 500. And now I'm like, oh, I think there's going to be 10,000 and there's 12,000. It's the coolest thing. It's like, oh, okay, that's a different reality. And what about how you feel about yourself? I mean, were your financial struggles impacting your self-confidence?
Yeah, I was struggling with, everything. I was just like, I don't understand, why am I not capable, and all these, negativity. But no, I feel great. I feel pretty accomplished. I did pretty good last year financially and in relationships, and everything just got put into place just because I understand where my money is going. And I opened an IRA, and I feel like I'm taking steps towards my future,
Yeah, good. Okay, so speaking of the IRA, now, did you just start saving for retirement, or had you been saving a little bit or not at all?
No, I started saving last year.
Okay, and about how much have you saved?
I want to say I saved at least 10,000.
Good for you. Good for you.
Yes.
And
So it's a good catch up.
yeah. And are you doing an IRA or a Roth IRA?
I did the SEP IRA.
Oh, perfect. Because you're self-employed. So you're filing as a sole proprietor 1099, right?
That's correct. Yes.
And tell us a little bit about the work that you're doing.
So I started pretty much looking up opportunities for driving people around, and I found a client who's in a wheelchair, and she's got her own van, but she can't drive. So I pretty much drive her around 3 days out of the week for a variety of hours, and just pretty much her assistant, and her driver. And then I drive other people with disabilities, young kids that are going to college and they just can't drive. So I drive them there and back. I did some pet sitting and dog walking and stuff like that. So yeah, I stood in line a couple of times for people. That was kind of funny.
Did you stand in line for an iPhone?
No, luckily, I'm so glad. It was actually the DMV, so.
Oh, wow. Now, just offhand, out of curiosity, why don't you do Uber?
I did Uber when I got started, and in reality, it's not great money. It's you take a good wear and tear on your car, and you get very little money paid, and you have to deal with customers that aren't always kind. So, I decided not to do that anymore.
Yeah, that's not good.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and now you're out you just moved to Kansas City, right?
Kansas City, Missouri. I got here about 3 days ago. I'm going to start it all over again and see where it takes me. I'm also thinking about other things. I want to go back to school and figure out something with animals. I haven't decided exactly. Or a grocery store that's plant-based or something a little bit on the healthier side like that.
Perfect. Did you go back and share with your dad that now you've started saving more and no more credit card debt?
Yeah, I actually impressed him. He was talking to me about, he's going to pay off his house finally. And I'm proud of him. He's, 84 years old and, finally about to pay out his house. And that's for him a big thing. He's worked his whole life for that. So he said, I need, a few $1,000s more. And I said, Dad, how much do you need? And he said, oh, don't worry about it. And I said, no, seriously. And he said, well, I need 3,000. And I said, do you need it or do you have it? And he's like, yeah, I do. And I said, okay, I'll write you a check. And he says, what? And I said, well, Dad, I'm saving, this is what you taught me. This is what it's for, right? And he says, oh, he was proud.
Oh, that's so sweet. All right. Well, is there anything I didn't ask about or anything else you'd like to add?
No, I mean, this is I just thank you for the Profit Boss Radio and for what you do, because this community is amazing. And I really have connected with other women, just by the stuff they ask, or, when they post something on Facebook and you answer it. It really makes a difference to have something where I feel like nobody's, making me small, or nobody's thinking I can't do it,
Thank you so much for saying that. It's great to hear, that that's your experience. That definitely is my intention. Gardenia, it is truly a pleasure to have you as a member of the Profit Boss community and as an inspiring woman who is taking control of her money. Next is Alexis. Now, when Alexis emailed me to tell me her money story, I thought it was a triumphant story of someone who's let go of strongly held beliefs about how life has to be and taken on having an affordable life coming hell or high water. I even got on the phone with her to talk about it. But when we hit record, another much more vulnerable story came out. Yes, Alexis and her husband have made some incredible choices to pay off debt, and I'm inspired by that. But the real story here is Alexis's moment of truth about what debt meant for her marriage and what kind of a wife she wants to be and what kind of possibilities she's committed to in the world. And in the end, I'm really touched by her big heart and her selflessness and her honesty. I think she's a great role model, not only as a profit boss, but as a woman who's committed to a life with a loving partnership. Please enjoy my interview with Alexis. Alexis, welcome to Profit Boss Radio.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So you have a very unique kind of financial transformation story, and you did something pretty dramatic, didn't you?
Yes.
What was that?
So It's been about 6 months now. My husband and I, we were living up in Northern California, and we decided that we were going to move back to Texas. A part of that process is we decided, you know what, to save money and get back on our feet a little bit, we're going to move into my husband's trailer. It's a trailer that you pull with a truck.
Is it okay? I think that's what I was going to ask. You pull it with a truck. It doesn't have a steering wheel and an engine in it.
No.
Okay.
No, it doesn't.
And how big is this trailer?
So it's 42 feet long, and it has 3 pullouts.
So for how many months have you been living in this trailer now?
So it's been about 6 months. It's been since May.
My goodness. Does it have like air conditioning and heating?
Yes, it does.
Oh,
so
okay,
it has 2 air conditioning units. It's actually pretty well vented in there, so it stays cool. I mean, it's a hot Texas sun, but it stays pretty cool.
And this is all part of your family financial plan. So you moved into the trailer to save money. And do you keep track of, for example, how much money do you think you've saved?
I mean, all in all, with rent and utilities, garbage, all that kind of stuff, I think we were paying upwards of $1,800 a month, maybe more, maybe like between there and $2,000, just depending on the season and how much we were using. And now we pay $350 flat for everything.
Wow. And I think some people are going to think of this as like extreme budgeting or extreme living. Like it seems it's a choice that not many people make, but has it kind of made your financial partnership more cohesive? I mean, is it kind of exciting to be now kind of getting to your goals faster?
Yeah, definitely. I would say it's exciting for me. Anyways, I'm 5'5", so when I walk into this trailer, it's pretty big. It's almost like an apartment on wheels. And so I was like, oh, this is great. We're going to save so much money. Like, this really isn't that bad. So my husband had this trailer because he lived in it in college. He's very money conscious. And so he did that all through college as like, hey, I'm going to save money and not go into debt by going to school. So I think if you were to ask him, he's like, woohoo, we're back in the trailer. But I mean, thankfully he thinks that way, and that's why he still had it, and we were able to do this.
So tell me, let's back up a little bit. Give the listeners an idea of kind of where you're coming from a money perspective. What were some of the lessons that you learned about money in your childhood, or kind of what was your relationship to money when you met your husband? So
I think my parents, they did a pretty good job of teaching us about money. We had bank accounts, starting when we were like in elementary school. I remember them talking about investing in the stocks. And this is obviously back before a whole lot with the internet and computer. So we would get the newspaper and then I'd look at the stocks. And I just remember them talking about it, not anything specific. And then, we were taught about credit cards, and we did some budgeting. I wouldn't say a lot. So they did a really good job on educating my siblings and I. Unfortunately for them, I don't think a whole lot of it really stuck with me, or at least it was there, but it wasn't personal yet. Like, I didn't have the personal struggle with money yet.
So it was more intellectual than practical.
Yeah. So I have a bachelor's of science in mechanical engineering. And so they all were paid fairly well internships. I was always very independent. I hated asking my parents for money, and I never really talked to them about where I was at with money. My mom would be like, oh, you got to pay interest on your loans. I'm like, yeah, I will. I have an engineering degree. I'm going to have a job after school. I'm not that concerned about it. That's kind of where I was at a little bit, which is awful.
It's not an unreasonable mindset. You had the expectation of making a high income, but then you actually have to pay the loans at some point. So yeah. What was the fall from grace? When did things start to get tough?
Really, it started again, still when I was in college, and I was just making poor decisions. I was going out multiple times a week, blowing money at the bar, I love to travel. And so, kind of pay to go and do that, go out to eat with my friends a lot. I didn't really cook a whole lot at home. And then with all that too, I'm very giving. I love to give. I love to spend things on my friends. So it'd be like, oh yeah, guys, I got the bar tab, or hey, I got the bill tonight. No big deal.
Financial stress and anxiety and a sense that she was still making poor decisions with her money led her to discover Mint.com, a financial tool that helps users analyze spending.
I started getting on that and I started trending my money and seeing where I was spending and how much I was spending. And I think that's where really I was kind of like, oh, I'm an analytical person. I'm a smart person. This doesn't look good. This looks really bad.
You mean how much of your money was being budgeted for drinks at the bar? I mean, is that what you're saying didn't look good, or was it like the whole net worth picture?
Yeah, just how much. Yeah, well, the whole net worth picture, because it shows you that. So that part, and then just here's where you're spending all your money.
Alexis shared with me that her husband's favorite hobby is to work on cars, including rebuilding engines, and that he even plans to build her a truck. That he had been very financially conservative his whole life until he met her, so that, among other things, he could continue to afford his hobby. And what she began to see was how her debt was impacting her husband, because he was now her financial partner.
That's very expensive. It's an expensive interest and hobby to have. And we used to get in fights about it a lot, actually. And I think the moment that the money struggle became personal for me was when I realized, hey, I'm being selfish. This is really selfish for me to be having this debt and carrying it around and now putting it on my husband, who's never had debt before. I just blew all this money that I could have had. I worked all the way through college. I had really great internships. I probably didn't need to take some of the loans I took. I didn't need to buy the car. And I realized here I am and I've made these poor choices and I've got to go to my husband and not necessarily ask forgiveness, but in my heart it was like, I want him to realize that I'm sorry for being selfish and putting this on you. My husband was raised, his dad was very much like cash is king, don't go into debt, no credit card debt, be responsible, all these things that, like I said, I knew but weren't necessarily personal. But then as I started to relate them to things in the podcast or books or people that I heard in the podcast that I would go read after, like Automatic Millionaire was one of them. I've been able to have, I think, better conversations with my husband, but then also it's helped with my business.
I asked Alexis whether she can feel her goals coming into view, and she shared that when she and her husband arrived in Texas, sadly, the job he thought he had lined up for himself fell through. And as a result, not only did they live for several months on one income, but they also came into some additional bills that needed to get paid, which left them feeling discouraged.
We're in the middle of the struggle and the storm right now. I'm not on the other side. Sometimes in this podcast, I hear the other women who are like, oh, and now I'm at this and I paid it off, this many years ago and we're not there. And I'm like, nope, still here. There's the light at the end of the tunnel now. We're doing what we can and what we have to get out of that and be able to hit those goals. I think for me, it's not necessarily about the getting out of debt or being rich or building all of this wealth necessarily. Really, I want to be able to do more with what we have. I want to be able to be rich in good works. I want to be able to love my husband and respect what he likes to do in his hobby and be able to afford that because it makes him happy, it makes me happy, be able to lay the foundation for our family and to give generously and be able to create opportunities where I can give back. And I think so much of that is because I realized taking on debt was so selfish that I don't want that selfishness anymore.
Thank you, Alexis, for a very vulnerable and inspiring conversation. Thanks for being a profit boss. Thanks for being on track to fulfill what's important to you. And I hope you enjoyed this episode of Profit Boss Radio.